In the Archie comics, April and Splinter developed a student-teacher relationship that allowed her to defend herself and stop being a damsel in distress. So, it was no surprise when April figured it was time to return the favor and help Splinter turn back to human. Unfortunately, no good deed goes unpunished, and April ended up experiencing Splinter's dilemma in her own flesh. Today, I will delve into the story of The Fifth Turtle from the Archie Comics Adventures. The Fifth Turtle was a story written by Steve Sullivan and Brian Thomas, the same team behind the two-parter about how the Turtles got their weapons. The story happened despite the restrictions from the Turtles' creators about creating female Ninja Turtles. However, given that the events of the episode would get undone by the end of the story, one could assume that it would do no harm to the uniqueness of the Turtles. Furthermore, it explored the idea of April joining the Turtles in their adventures as a true equal to them. The Fifth Turtle is a sequel to The Wrath of the Fire God from the TMNT Adventures special of 1992. In that story, the Turtles had been vacationing on Kilooto Island, where they became involved in a heated debate about the island's future. The two main projects were Mr. High Life's International Hotel and Dr. Carol Sagan's Giant Telescope. Unbeknownst to them, Mr. High Life had been brainwashed by an alien race known as the Grems. These beings needed to feed on the lava beneath the island, and they wanted the hotel to successfully attract world leaders and brainwash them. Their long-term goal was to acquire slaves. To convince the locals to vote for the hotel, the Grems disguised themselves as a local deity, Otomo. They had been able to do this thanks to their powers of eating lava and other forms of fire, using that energy to fly or shoot fireballs from their hands. The Turtles uncovered the truth behind High Life and, with the help of Carol Sagan, defeated the Grems and reprogrammed their ships to send them back to their planet, Gremula. As a side note, the story was dedicated to Carol Kalish, an influential writer, editor, comic book retailer, and sales manager known for her work behind the scenes in Marvel Comics. The Grems returned in TMNT Adventures Special Number 11 of 1994 in a story titled The Fifth Turtle. This issue was also the last special of the Adventure series. The story opened with Splinter's surprise birthday party, organized by the Turtles, Oyuki, April, and Ninjara. Despite having a good time with his extended family, Splinter couldn't help but think about all the time that had passed since he was human. A time he could now barely remember. These words resonated with April, who couldn't help but reflect on the hardships Splinter must have gone through to say goodbye to his humanity. With that heavy thought on her mind, April remembered an old article about Genterprises Corporation. This company had been working on an antitoxic waste serum they claim could reverse harmful mutations in affected organisms. Thinking this could be the key to returning Splinter to his human form, she decided to investigate what happened to their project. The research had its obstacles, as the company recently changed its name to Merg Enterprises. Nevertheless, April contacted intern Perry Gray to give her a tour of the building, a tour that was immediately interrupted by her boss, Dr. Koss, who asked April to leave, as their new owners didn't like people snooping around their business. On her way out, April knew something was wrong. After spotting Tim London, one of the Shredder's old henchmen, she decided to stay and investigate whether Merg Enterprises was involved in legitimate business or not. That night, after seeing Tim deliver a barrel of toxic waste to Dr. Koss, April sneaked in and quickly ran into an undercover Perry, who was also investigating her boss, who'd lied about the restriction on tours. She was also wondering why all the scientists were working in isolation and why they had yet to meet the company's new owners. It seemed like her wishes were about to become reality, as Dr. Koss was talking to the owners. April and Perry found out that the owner's goal was to get Ooze to complete a mutagen-anti-mutagen experiment. All they needed now were test subjects. This was enough for April to realize they were in trouble, something she figured out too late, as they were discovered by a Grem. Yes, Merg was Grem backwards. Perry and April were captured and taken to cages, where they were used as test subjects of the Ooze, turning into a mutant turtle and a mutant flying squirrel respectively. April knew that the Grems would test the anti-mutagen next, but she was uncertain about what they would do to them after it, so she decided they needed to escape. Fortunately, their new forms came with new abilities. Perry could squeeze through small spaces like many rodents. This allowed her to pass through the cage bars. On the other hand, April had very powerful and sharp claws and a beak that helped her break free. With the door locked, they took the ventilation duct to the roof, where they glided their way out thanks to Perry's wing flaps. After the shock of seeing April as a Ninja Turtle, the four brothers and Splinter planned to revert her back to normal. Preparing for this mission, April donned a white bandana and a sword, while Perry held a nightstick, a weapon she was already familiar with as she'd worked as a campus cop in college for 2 semesters. It's worth noting that April was slightly different from the other Ninja Turtles. She had darker skin and a more pronounced beak and claws. To fit the turtle style, she wore a belt with an A on its buckle. The Turtles, Perry, and Splinter attacked the Grems, and after a short fight, were surprised by a mutated Grem. As the male Turtles and Splinter engaged in battle with it, April and Perry figured out they needed to use their brains to win the fight. They decided to test the anti-mutagen on the mutated Grem first. After the success of their actions, the Grems were furious, especially after being defeated by a woman once again. Remembering Carol Sagan's actions, the Turtles returned the Grem ship to Gremula. Unfortunately, there was now only enough anti-mutagen for one person, and 3 candidates: Splinter, Perry, and April. Splinter simplified their decision, as he considered that one had to move forward in life. He had gotten accustomed to being a rat, and had no desire to go back. The final decision was between April and Perry, and the reporter decided that Perry should take it, as the Turtles could help her get used to being a mutant. Surprisingly, Perry used the anti-mutagen in April, as she figured the world would miss a famous reporter more than her. Plus, she really liked being able to glide. It was also revealed that Dr. Koss was brainwashed by the Grem, and they started working on his recovery. In the aftermath, Mikey lamented the resolution of this adventure, as he felt like April looked kinda cute as a turtle. Everyone but April laughed. April's transformation into a turtle was temporary, as there was a no female turtles rule for the licensing at the time. However, more female turtles would come and go over time, such as Venus, Jenica, Lita, and others. In April 2023, NECA teased the release of an April action figure based on the story, which is expected to come out this year. April's transformation into a turtle was an exciting story that could have been explored more in depth. We only got a few panels of her as a Ninja Turtle, and the story never had a follow-up episode. But I understand it needed to be undone right away, especially considering this didn't take place in the main Adventures book. Furthermore, by then, April was the star of 2 miniseries and was definitely more helpful as a skillful human ally than an adventurer, so it wouldn't have made sense to keep her as a mutant. If anything, I'm surprised that Perry never appeared again. What do you think about April's mutation? Was it a wise decision to turn her back to human? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, see you in the sewers.